Hello, welcome to this lesson. In this video, you are going to learn how to use partial pivoting and back substitution to solve the system of linear equations. So I have these equations here, then you are going to use partial pivoting and back substitution to solve it. So let's look at how you are going to do this. Okay, so to do this, first of all, I'm going to write the equations in an augmented matrix form. Okay, so we're going to have the coefficient matrix to be 2, 3, 5. Then we have 4 minus 2, 8. Then we are going to have 0 here. Then we have 4 minus 2. So I'll then augment it with the right hand side values, which will be 1, 3, 1. Okay. So now let's look at how you're going to use partial pivoting and a back substitution to solve this augmented matrix here. Okay. So for the partial pivoting, okay, the first thing you're going to do is that we're going to consider the first column, okay, which is this column here. And then we look at the absolute value for each of the values there, and then compare and choose the biggest value there. Okay, so looking at the entries there, when I compare their absolute values, the highest will be the 4. Okay, so the 4 will become my pivot element. Okay, but you see that the 4 is on row 2. So for this reason, you interchange row 1 and row 2 so that we can get the pivot element on what? Row 1. Okay, so I'm going to say that row 2 should become row 1. Okay, and then row 1 to become row 2. All right, let me put this arrow here. Okay, so row 2 is becoming row 1, then row 1 is becoming row 2. Okay, so now let's rewrite our augmented matrix. So now we are going to have 4 minus 2, 8. Okay, then you're going to have 3 here, and then you're going to have 2, 3, 5. Okay, and then 1. And then lastly, you will have 4. You have 0, 4 minus 2, and then 1. Okay, all right, so now the next thing will be that you are going to make all the entries below the pivot element 0. Okay, so these are the entries below the pivot element, so you are going to make them 0. So you make these two 0, and then this is already 0, so you don't really have to worry about it. All right, so now let's look at how you're going to make these two 0. So what you do is that you try and make the 2 0, okay, using the what? Pivot element, which is this 4 here. Okay, so you're going to use this pivot element to make this 2 0. Okay, so let's look at how you are going to do this. So you are going to add a multiple of the pivot row, okay, which is this row here, okay, to row 2. Okay, and then that'll give us our new row 2. So let's look at how you are going to do this. So I want to make this 2 here 0. Okay, so the only way to do this is change this 4 here to 2 and then subtract it from these two, right? That'll be one of the easiest way to do it. So what I'll do is that I will multiply row 1. Okay, I will multiply row 1 by 2 divided by 4. Okay, and then that will help us get a value that when you subtract from these two will give us what? 0. So what I'll do is that uh, I'll just consider this 2 and this 4. Okay, and then I'll divide the 2 by 4. So you're going to have let me name this as m1. Okay, I'm going to have this to be 2 divided by 4. Okay, which will give us what? 1 over 2. So I'm going to multiply through row 1 by what? M1, and then add it to what? Row 2. Okay, but you see that when I multiply this M1 here, which is just half, by row 1, you are going to get 2 for the first entry. Okay, and then when we add it to 2, you are going to get 4 again, which will not make the 2 there 0. So for this reason, you are going to negate this value here. Okay, so I negate this, so you are going to get m1 to be equal to what? 2 over 4, right? Then I will negate the half because I want to get 0 for this entry here. Alright, so I think to be okay if I bring minus here. Okay, alright, so let's continue. So you're going to have the new row 2, okay, to be equal to the old row 2 plus, okay, minus half multiplying what row 1. This is what you are going to have. Alright, so let's continue. So let me write down the matrix. We are going to have 4 minus 2, 8, and then we have 3 here. Okay, so now let's look at the second row. So I want to make the 2 here 0. Okay, I want to make the 2 here 0. Okay, so now let's look at the reason I made this negative again. Alright, so assuming that I have the first entry for row 2, which is 2, okay, being added to 1 over 2 multiplying the first entry for row 1, which will be 4, we are going to get 2 plus 2, and then that will give us 4 again, right? But we want to get 0, so for that reason we will have to negate this half here, right? So when I negate the half, we are going to get 2 minus 2, which will give us what? 0. That's the reason why I negated the m1. Okay, so let's continue. So for this reason, for the first entry for the new 2, okay, we are going to have we have 2, okay, plus minus half multiplying the first entry for row 1, which is 4, right? So we are going to have 2 minus 2, which will give us what? 0, right? So my entry here will now become 0. So the second one will be 3 plus, okay, minus half multiplying minus 2, right? So let's look at what you're going to get. You're going to get 3 plus 1, okay, and this will be equal to what? 4. Alright, so my second entry will be 4. Okay, and then for the third one, we are going to have 5 plus, okay, minus half, okay, multiplying 8. So let's what you're going to get. You're going to have 5 minus 4, okay, and this will give us a value of what? 1. So this will be my next entry 1. So let's look at the last entry. So we have 1. Okay, let me write this here. Let me clean what I have here. Okay, all right, so we have 1, okay, plus minus half, okay, multiplying 3, right? So that will be equal to 1, okay, minus 3 on 2. Okay, so that's what you're going to get for that. So 1 minus 3 on 2, that will give me a value of minus half. Okay, so you're going to have minus half here. Okay, so now we are done with row 2 now. That's our new row 2. So you have 4, you have 0, 4, minus 2, 1 here. Okay, so now what we do is that we have to get our new pivot element. Okay, you will have to get our new pivot element, and then looking at what you have here, the next value you would like to make 0 is what? This 4 here. Okay, so what we do is that we will consider, normally if you want to choose your pivot element, okay, you just have to know that all the pivot elements will be on the diagonal. That's it. Okay, all the pivot elements will be on the diagonal, and then after getting the pivot element, you make all other values below it 0. Okay, so this is the first uh, pivot element here on the diagonal, right? So you see that you've made the value below it 0, right? And then this will be the next one, so you must make the values below it 0, which is this 4 here. And then comparing these two values, we have 4 and 4, they are all the same. Okay, so we don't really have to interchange the row 3 and then the row 2, so we just have to continue with our row operation. Okay, so what I'll do is that I will multiply row 2 by minus 1, okay, and then add it to row 3. Okay, so our new row 3, okay, will be equal to the old row 3, okay, plus minus 1 multiplying row 2. I'm doing this way so that you can get 0 here. Okay, so I can get 0 here. Alright, so let's look at the entries. Okay, so let's look at the entries. Okay, so you are going to have the first one, you are going to have 0, okay, plus minus 1 multiplying the first entry in row 2, which is also what? 0, right? So then you are going to get 0 here. So I have 0, and then for the second one, Okay, for the second one, you are going to have 4, okay, plus minus 1 multiplying 4, which is the second entry in row 2. And this will give us 4 minus 4, which will be equal to 0. Right, so you are going to have 0 here. And then for the third one, I'm going to have minus 2, okay, plus minus 1 multiplying 1, okay. And then let's what you're going to get. You're going to get minus 2 minus 1, which will give us a value of what? Minus 3, okay. So I have minus 3 here. And then the right hand side, you're going to have 1, okay, plus minus half, sorry, minus 1 multiplying minus half, okay. So this one, you're going to have 1 plus half, okay, which will give us 3 on 2. Okay, so we have 3 on 2 here. So now let's write our final matrix. We are going to have we're going to have 4 minus 2, 8, 3. Okay, and then we will have 0, 4, 1 minus half, and then we will have 0, 0 minus 3, and then 3 on 2. Okay, so now you can go ahead and solve for the unknown variables x1, x2, and then x3. Starting from the last equation, so you're going to have minus 3 x3, okay, to be equal to 3 on 2. So I divide both side by minus 3. So I'm going to have times 1 over minus 3 here, okay. So this will cancel out this, and then this 3 also cancel out this. So then we're going to get x3 to be equal to minus half. So we're going to substitute that into the second row or equation, okay, so that you can get the value of what? X2. So this is the back substitution that we are doing. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so for the next row we have 4x2, okay, plus x3, and this is equal to minus half, right? So you're going to have x2, okay, to be equal to 1 over 4, okay, multiplying minus half, okay, minus x3, right? So you're going to have x2 to be equal to 1 over 4, multiplying minus half, okay, minus 1 over 2, so that was plus 1 over 2. So we are going to have x2 to be equal to 1 over 4 multiplying 0, which will be 0. So our x2 will be 0. Alright, so now let's find x1. Okay, so for the x1, you're going to consider the row 1. Okay, so let's look at that. So for that one also, we are going to have 4x1, okay, minus 2x2 plus 8x3, and then that will be equal to 3, right? So let's do the substitution. We're going to have 4x1 minus 2 multiplying 0, okay, plus 8 multiplying minus half, and then this will be equal to 3. So you're going to have 4x1, okay, minus 0 minus 8 multiplying minus 1 on 4. So that you're going to have minus 4, so minus 4, and that's equal to 3. So you're going to have 4x1, okay, to be equal to 3 plus 4. So you're going to have x1 to be equal to 7, okay, on 4. So that will be our x1. This is how to use partial pivoting and then back substitution to solve system of linear equations.